Faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase, Dr. King said more than 50 years ago. It's beautiful. President Trump showed good faith last week in that bipartisan meeting where he allowed the cameras in for almost an hour as they discussed DACA and immigration. And although he didn't see the entire staircase leading to the final agreement, he told Democrats and Republicans, all of them that were present, what he needed to get to yes. He needed an end to chain migration and the wall in exchange for a path to legalization for those 800,000 illegal immigrants. 2 days later, the Democrats, acting in bad faith along with Lindsey Graham, presented him a deal that they knew he couldn't accept. It increased chain migration and did not sufficiently fund the wall. A total non-starter. So after the president nixed it, Senator Durbin rushed out to mischaracterize off-color remarks about the corruption in the third world that drives citizens of those countries away into the United States. Well, that set off a firestorm. Everyone from Al Sharpton to LeBron James weighed in, declaring Trump toxic on the issue of race. And then despicable columns like this further poison the well. Yeah, I love that nuance by Charles Blow. Members of the Congressional Black Caucus predictably are piling on.
I've called him a racist, deplorable, despicable, added to what others are calling him, a moron, ignorant, on and on and on.
Do you think President Trump is a racist?
I think he is a racist.
Now, if I were a conspiracy theorist and watching how this whole thing is played out, I'd almost want to say the entire thing was a setup. Let's talk about what's really going on here. The Democrats cannot afford for Trump to be successful, particularly among African Americans. Unemployment among African Americans was 7.9% in 2016. Last month, it was down over a point to 6.8%. That's a record. Weekly earnings for African Americans up nearly 2%. Home ownership among African Americans has ticked up to 42%. Given the success of Trump's policies for Black America and the left's tragic record, they've decided to demonize the president as a racist. It's all they have. Disturbin' Durbin went so far as to claim that the president was racist for using the term chain migration.
When it came to the issue of, quote, chain migration, I said to the president, do you realize how painful that term is to so many people? African Americans believe that they migrated to America in chains. And when you speak about chain migration, it hurts them personally.
Well, then we found this.
The DREAM Act would not allow what is known as chain migration. In fact, DREAM Act students would have very limited ability to sponsor their family members.
Yeah, it's when Trump uses it, it's racist. When he uses it, it's just descriptive. And incidentally, Lindsey Graham, who supposedly upbraided the president for calling certain countries S-holes, had no trouble using his own tough language when referring to certain countries.
The people coming across the southern border live in hellholes. They don't like that. They want to come here. Our problem is we can't have everybody in the world who lives in a hellhole coming to America.
Oh, how rude. So are Graham and Durbin racist? If we apply the same logic they want us to apply to Trump, well, I guess they are. That's ridiculous, of course. The left is now circling the wagons on this. And now we learn that John Lewis, Maxine Waters, Frederica Wilson, remember with the cowboy hat, and a few others are boycotting the State of the Union. Now, you got to be kidding me. They should all be attending to thank the president for all he's doing to better the lives of African Americans. On my radio show today, author and Hoover Institution fellow Shelby Steele had these choice words for Congressman Lewis.
John Lewis lacks the imagination, and has been so well rewarded for his history of protest that he just keeps beating that drum. He keeps trying to protest, thinking that that's what's going to get us ahead. It's not. Protest is over for Black Americans. We have to rely on the individual developing their skills, their talents, competing in the world.
Now, if the congressional Democrats and celebs in the fields of entertainment and sports, if they really wanted to help struggling minorities, they would work with, not against President Trump to continue to expand economic and educational opportunities like school choice for all people. But thankfully, I was actually heartened by this. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee has not announced plans that she'll join the no-shows at the State of the Union. Now, let's be real. It would take a nuclear holocaust for her to give up that camera-ready real estate she always occupies on the aisle. Is she already there, camped out? She has to come on the show. I think she's fun. I like her. As usual, regular working people tend to have a better handle on the truth than the swamp dwellers here in Washington. I want you to listen to a few of my callers from my show today.
We are doing much better under President Trump than we did when we counted on our own person, so to speak. President Obama, he did very little directly to help our community. We thought when we elected him, he would indeed do what Donald Trump is doing, make America great. Instead, he divided America.
Trump is not a racist guy. You know, Trump is trying to get equality for Americans. You know, and somehow everybody's thinking, oh, he's so racist. Oh, it's a racist comment. And he's not. He just wants what's best for Americans, black, white, or other.
That's why I love radio. I hear from real people every day. It's my own focus group, ongoing. It's pretty obvious why the Democrats have themselves so worked up into this racial frenzy. They are petrified of a Republican president who actually delivers tangible economic results for black and Hispanic Americans. Democrats are racial monopolists, and they're not about to allow President Trump to break their stranglehold on the black and Hispanic voters without a really nasty fight, which is what you're seeing right now. Now, check this out. The Atlantic is reporting that the president's support among African Americans is up. That's the Atlantic magazine. It's not a conservative think tank. In fact, by the way, that support among African Americans has nearly doubled. When he was elected back in 2016, only 13% of black men supported Trump. Now, according to a new survey of more than 600,000 people, Trump's support among African American men is up to 23%. He's also gone up somewhat with black women from 4%, that's a pathetic number in 2016, to now, a little bit better, 11% in this latest poll. I'm telling you this, as the financial benefits of Trump's policies touch the pocketbooks and the neighborhoods of the black community, the old Democratic charges and hysteria will look more and more unhinged. Now, is this really what Dr. King dreamed about? Faith, freedom, and equal opportunity were at the heart of Dr. King's vision for his fellow Americans and fellow black Americans. And today, who's closer to helping more of our citizens realize that vision? President Trump, who in a year has already shown incredible results? Or Democrats, who when they're out of power and out of ideas, simply call their opponents racists? I think you know the answer. And that's The Angle.